1st, 2024, and I'm here tonight with frequent host and co-host, although we haven't done this together for a while, but it's great to be on with you, Sonny, here on this Monday. It's kind of a bit of a somber occasion for us because on Friday we lost our good friend and co-host and captive audience co-founder, David Darnell, a real patriot, and um, he'd been battling since the end of January against cancer, and it hit us pretty hard, you know.
It's hit us very hard. And Kevin, it's great to be on with you today. It is a bittersweet. And I'm sorry, I'll probably get emotional through this episode. And that's to be expected, I would say. And, David was, as you mentioned, a co-founder of Captive Audience. And he and Jeff Reynolds launched this Captive Audience during COVID and going, we've got to reach people.
Yeah, May 12th, 2020. That's how long ago it was, folks.
Yeah.
At least 500 shows. We lost track. There's just no way to keep track because it's just like we weren't doing a counter,
No.
But Jeff and David said, that's enough. That's it. We're done sitting at home. We're going to go talk to this captive audience that's stuck out there and tell them what we think of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here. We're going to continue keeping his memory alive and continue with the program. So I have a post I want to put in, and this is an article it's in the Oregon Catalyst, and it is about David, and it's written by Jeff Reynolds. And I'll tell you, thank you, everybody. I'm reading what your comments there. We miss him tremendously. And this is written by Jeff Reynolds, and it says, he wrote it on Friday. Longtime activist David Darnell passes, and it is just very, very heartwarming. Do you mind if I just read this?
Just read it.
Okay. Our dear friend, David Darnell, and I want to tell you, the picture that is in this, I believe, I can be wrong, but I believe I took this picture when we were at the 2020 delegate convention, and then we went to the White House together. There was only 5 of us that went, and David and I, we were there. And I believe I took that picture of him in there, and I have one of me that looks very similar. But he's gone before, so that might not be that one, but that's what I think. Anyway, it says, our dear friend David Darnell has gone home. He held on as long as he could, but now his broken body is at rest. His last act on this plane was to use what little strength still remained to put his arm around Karen's neck and give her a kiss. When she left the hospital to take care of chores back home, David's remaining strength slipped away. He kissed me goodbye, then waited for me to leave. What a man. That's a quote from Karen, She, of course, is shattered. And that's the part that I'm going to read. And there is a Give, Send, Go link on here. And they're hoping to raise $30,000. And to date, have raised $17,744. And so I just ask you, friends and followers and supporters, to help out Karen, help out the family. And Dave provided so much. I was looking at his Facebook page, which he started in 2009. And I thought, gosh, I wonder how long I've known David. Well, I got involved as a precinct committee person here in Umatilla County in 2013. Was when I was appointed, and then elected in 2014. Well, he was involved before I was. And I know that I met him like I met you at those state central committee meetings,
Yeah.
And you see some people and you gravitate towards people. You gravitate towards people that you can relate to, that you like, and that you think are representing you, because there's others that are there that I just, no, I don't. That's not a person I feel like I want. They might be good Republicans, but they're just, some people click and some people don't. I'll just leave it at that. And there's many groups, so on David's, I don't mean to hog the program here, but on David's Facebook page, he has got almost 1,900 followers.
Yeah.
Almost 1,900. And there's a bio that Karen posted today about David, and it is from restoreoregonwaters.org. So I never even knew about this. There's things to look up and learn about somebody, and we all have different dimensions and different things that we're involved in our lives that don't always cross, so now I see why Restore Oregon Now. Here was an organization, and it's a 501c3, Restore Oregon Waters. And so it made me look this organization up, and it is, I don't know if it was founded by David and Karen, but it says in 2013, David, the background of restoreoregonwaters.org, that in 2013, David and Karen knew that an important activity that brought side benefits to Oregon's stream ecology and public safety was coming to an end. And so it looks like they formed this to help clean up streams, because they do suction dredging for gold. That's a hobby I know of theirs.
Yeah.
And as a byproduct of that, they remove large amounts of hazardous materials, lead, mercury, other and dangerous industrial things, and debris, trash, the glass and the trash and whatnot. And so actually help to clean up watersheds. So I had no idea of that. Did you know that?
I had no idea. And, in all the years that I've known David, and I can't remember the first time I met him, he probably thought I was another one of those, party establishment guys except I got along with the Tea Party people way too well for the establishment folks. And
he was a Tea Party person for sure.
He absolutely was. That's when he really that was his foray as he launched into it. But every year I've known him, I've gotten to know him and find out things I just never expected. He describes Stream Savers as a conservative conservation organization. And, that's something that when he was somebody who could blow up stereotypes, much to the consternation of liberals. That's for sure. He really pissed them off, which is fabulous, as it should be.
Yes. And so his bio from Restore Oregon Waters it says, David is in his fourth year as a director of the Stream Savers Board and is a small business owner. He moved to rural Oregon in 1971 and studied music at the University of Oregon and Western Oregon State College. He was a professional musician from 1976 to 2010. David's strength lies in small business startups, the nuts and bolts solution guy. And he was instrumental in the initial development of the Stream Savers vision. He's the past president of the Willamette Valley Mining Association, and in his spare time, he enjoys relaxing at home with his family, researching Mopar mods, and attending NHRA events. And I know he and I discussed drag racing, so I knew that he liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm kind of fond of Mopar, actually. So, and I'll tell you, Dave, that's starting small business startups and nuts and bolts solution guy. he was a solutions guy. You know, all that fits him. That description really fits him. You're muted. I don't know what happened, Kevin. Nope. Nope. Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know. I still can't hear you. Okay, so he's going to work on that. But, you know, there's some other stuff. A lot of people are posting wonderful things on his Facebook page. And there's a picture, or not a picture, but a quote. David had memorable quotes, or he quoted memorable people. And he was at the Opry playing with some band. Yeah, I saw a picture of that. It's like, whoa. You know, one of the things I'll tell you is he was sober 24 years, and I have 30 years, and he and I discussed it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. Some technical doodad. Anyway. Sorry.
And, you know, so, and he and I kind of discussed sobriety on one of our captive audiences, because that's something that he didn't realize of me. And that is a wonderful thing. And I think Karen has like 23 years.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's a much better way of living. And he, on his Facebook, he says, the third best decision of my life. It's a whole lot easier way to live. So I will just say kudos to that. And I absolutely echo that.
Well, and when people say, you know, it's too late for me, I can't recover. It's not worth
true.
it. It's not true. And well, they say, well, but you know, maybe you've hurt your health or something. Yeah, but you're going to live good years after that, your best years. And I think that's easy to say about David. He was pretty open about it quite often on the air. And of course, we've got a state where we got a lot of problems with addiction. And so I deferred to him when people explain what was happening, because I know that there's two sides to every one of these discussions.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated his wisdom on the topic whenever he shared it.
Definitely. And I love that you are wearing Stand for Freedom. That is a tip of the hat to David.
It is, because that was from Restore Oregon Now and the project Stand for Freedom, to try and start getting people to go and pressure their local electeds to fight back against what was at the time the COVID restrictions and all the things that were being done by local government and by school boards. And and it very simple ideas, things that got people thinking and doing, taking action, not just sitting there wringing their hands.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things that David liked to say is, I say, what's your advice here? Any words of wisdom here at the end of the program? And I think about 50% of the time, and he said, is do not comply. Do not comply.
Yes.
Because that's the way they hold power, is they just get everybody to think they have to do something. And he said, nah, stand for freedom, because they can't take it away from you unless you let them. And there were many other very funny things he said over the years that I know we'll recount here in the show and in the coming weeks. But he was somebody that had a unique sense of humor too, that this show turned into infotainment, because it wasn't just like, here's some information and you can't get anywhere else. Now, you would laugh at least once a show. And often the source of that laughter would be David saying something like, when I talked about the natural gas ban that they were trying to pass in the Eugene City Council, and did pass actually, and then withdrew. He informed everybody, oh yes, Eugene, where the Marxists go to lay their eggs. And I just doubled over laughing. I just, because it's only funny if it's extremely true, right? And so there are people walking around now that will have no idea where they heard that, where it came from. and it came from David Darnell telling everybody else this truth. And I liked how every once in a while when he would come on the show, which inspired me usually to do the same thing, he would change his nameplate from David Darnell to something else.
Yes.
And like will not comply. One of my favorites is wrong speaker, you know,
Yeah.
to poke fun at people that tried to shut you down because they thought, well, you're wrong, so you have to shut up. So he's like, nope, wrong speaker, gonna say it anyway. And then I remember I changed mine to guilty of false opinion, you know, which is another absurd concept, false opinion. But you know, that every time we did the show, it had an element of that to it. And so because I mean, some of the stuff that would go on, if you didn't laugh, then you'd probably cry because it's just that bad, right?
Yeah.
And he also stood steadfast, like when people say, well, you can't support President Trump. He's like, well, I'm doing it anyway. So there you go. Take that, you know.
Yeah. Hey, Nicholas, no offense. No offense taken, you know, that David is your favorite host. Absolutely no offense at all.
Nope.
And thank you for saying that.
Lori, he's our favorite host too.
Yes,
so there you
absolutely.
Go. There you go.
I have missed him on Fridays so much with me. And, you know, I miss the humor and his quick wit. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the thing was, you might have like a crappy day and you might have had no time to prepare for the show. And there was just some headlines and like, oh, more crap. God, I can't look at that Biden, you know, face again on anything. And by the way, I think the rest of the country's starting to join us on that one.
Yes.
Last Thursday. But you get on there and half the time David had no idea what happened in the news. He didn't know. If he didn't look at Twitter, which he often did, but if he didn't, he'd be like, okay, just tell me what's happening. And he would just react just spontaneously. Right. And it was always funny because it was every day was a lesson, another teachable moment in why, you know, being a conservative is frankly the right thing and why it was smart. And you could really bring in front of people what was so flawed in what was often accepted as the considered to be the mainstream opinion by just pointing out how absurd it was and laughing at it. And there's Saul Alinsky, I'm not going to quote him very often, but in his Rules for Radicals, he said ridicule is an attack for which there's no defense. Yeah, there isn't. And so we ridiculed and often in a very lighthearted and entertaining way all the stuff that's going on every day to us and our country. And I think everybody, because David was on and could make these comments, both of wisdom and of humor, everybody was smarter at the end of the show. I always got smarter because of it. And I really need to, you know, climb that ladder. So, yeah. And me too. Humor proves the pen beats the sword. It does. It does. Yeah. And there were times that we had crazy stuff going on with Captive Audience. I remember once we had 30,000 followers in Indonesia or something crazy like that. Yeah. No idea. But David would go, whoa, hey, everybody in Indonesia, hello.
Yes.
No. It's like,
yeah, that was fun while that lasted. Boy, did we get throttled down after that, though.
There's probably some people in some you know, rice paddy in Indonesia saying in you know, in broken English, Eugene, where Marxists go lay eggs. There's probably somebody doing that, and I think that that wisdom is forever conveyed to the world. Thanks to what he was doing. And you know what you guys did, and I know I was a part of it, I think a small part of it, but Restore Oregon Now and the effort to challenge Kate Brown, that really got people believing that they didn't just have to sit there and take it, and that you could organize for this. And I know many of the activists that got involved with Restore Oregon Now are now part of a lot of the things that are happening. They kind of, some people get excited and disappear, but a lot of people still stay around and then become the future of whatever is going to be accomplished. And so I run into them all the time. People that I'm like, when did I first meet you? And they're like, oh, we met because you were on those Zoom calls for the the Recall Kate Brown effort. And I'm like, oh yeah. Well, David was a significant force in trying to push this forward and make it happen. And he
voter
always made sure we were
conversion.
productive too.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Very, very, very much so.
And some of us like to talk a lot. I don't know who that could be, but he'd be like, "Can we rein this in here? Because we got to get something done today," and he'd get us back on track again with humor. And there were a lot of people that, some people just wanted to be told that they're super awesome, and David would tell you what he really thought, which is way more valuable than having
True.
somebody butter you up. You could accomplish a lot more if you listened and took heed of what he said.
Very much so. So here's a quote from just this past February that he posted on his Facebook, and it says, and it's by James Monroe. There is a price tag on human liberty. That price is the willingness to assume the responsibility of being free men. Payment of this price is a personal matter with each of us. I like that.
When was that?
He posted it February 7th.
February 7th, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And, I was kind of scrolling through his feed today and looking for some of the quotes that he did and some of the funny pictures and things like that. And I just go, oh, yeah. Yeah. Taxes are the price you pay so others may grift and steal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. And geez, there's no shortage of that in the people running the country right now. It seems to have reached its apex.
Yeah.
So bringing forth the wisdom of the founders and people from the past who already figured this stuff out and reminding us of it, that's a good part of what we have to do today. That makes a good patriot if you can tell people this kind of thing. It really
Yeah,
does.
absolutely. Absolutely. And he posted back in 2020, how on Facebook you can share memories, right?
Yeah.
December 15th of 2020, he said, government wants to confiscate $1, launder it through government bureaucracy, and hand 10 cents to someone and call it relief. Why don't we all just find someone who needs money and give it to them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he reposted that on December 15th of 2023. There are just some Eugene, Oregon is where communists return every September to lay their eggs.
Yes.
They come in September.
They come in September. I think that would be referring directly to the University of Oregon.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's quite some of them now that are starting to realize that they can't afford the college education that isn't getting them a job that they thought they were going to get, and they can't afford to buy, case of beer and some potato chips anymore, and their hopes of buying a home are quickly draining away. And that, I think, even the Marxists are starting to feel differently about what's happening, and that's predicted in what David posted there.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's
everybody wants freedom for themselves, really, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And And I think also he was an optimistic and positive person, which you might say, well, a sense of irony and sarcasm can reveal the truth. It can, but ultimately, it can be uplifting. Like I'm looking at one of his um, posts here. It says, "It's a good choice. Choose joy. Don't wait for things to get easier, simpler, or better. Life will always be complicated. Learn to be happy right now, otherwise you'll run out of time." He posted on January 18th before all this happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, that's and it's so true. I'll tell you, life is short. We don't ever know when it's going to get altered and get, David had a he lived life full, very, very full, and he's gone too young.
Yeah.
He truly is. Truly, truly is. But I like going through some of his feeds here with his dogs, his beloved dogs.
Oh, well, here's a funny one. How many episodes of Captive Audience were we on? And he suddenly you'd hear this barking in the background, and he'd be like, "Damn it! I forgot to give him a bone before the program started." And there's like a certain timer that goes off about 20 minutes into the program where they start yelping, and he'll say you'll see he'll mute the thing, and you could read his lips, and it's like, "Shut the hell up!"
Yes, yes.
tell the dogs to shut up, and you hear this, whining, and then a few minutes later they'd start barking again. Yeah, the Starlink freezes. That's right, Pat. That we had those all too often. Those were annoying,
Oh
but
yeah.
But it made it interesting because we just roll with it. It's like, yes, we are not one of these invulnerable show production operations and we joked, we were like, somebody's jamming Starlink again. Elon must have made posted another post on Twitter they didn't like or something like that, and it was something. And yeah, there was he was good at kind of bringing forward just obscure stories. 2024 26 new tax laws, the sell tax, 5% gas tax, and electricity at 14%. That was just an Oregon Catalyst post that he put up there. And yeah, I just saw your taxes are the price you pay so others may grift and steal.
Yeah.
Which is what they do because they don't solve problems.
No. Here's one from him in August of 23. $1 in 2013 is worth about 75 cents today. $1 of gold in 2013 is worth about $1.40 today. $1 of 2013 Bitcoin is worth about $2,200 today. That's quite a comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and a lot of people get their news from social media. I hope that thanks to David and of course Jeff and the work we've been doing, and Don, I hope that we've been a part of that because there's a lot of good information that comes forward, and you just don't get this stuff even on news outlets that we might tend to like. They don't always get around to reminding you of what James Monroe said,
Yeah.
or the truth about taxes. It's one thing to react to the news every day. It's another thing to have some perspective about it, and that's always been super important. Is the perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, do you want to touch a little bit on a little bit of news?
I've got a nice little version of this because that if all this news had happened and David were sitting here, he'd be like, when the hell are we going to talk about the news? Come on, and I think some stuff happened, and he would have, I know, no doubt, some of
Big
the
things
funniest
happen.
big things happen, and he would probably have some very entertaining things to say about one Joe Biden coming off that debate.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so why don't we kind of try to channel David here on this one because of what he would say? Because that debate, I only got to watch the last 45 minutes of it because of campaign travel. It was in Coos Bay, and but I caught the first chunk of it, and then the rest of it's been through the media and
Mhm.
what's happened then. And the
Mhm.
only thing is, usually you hear different versions of what happened from different outlets. And this time, for the first time I can recall, it was pretty much the same version of the debate from everyone. And it's
Yes.
that Joe Biden, it
Well,
was complete disaster.
yeah, in
Complete
fact, I was surprised to see at the end of the debate in the evening, an hour or so, 2 hours later, here's all these headlines from the left. And they're all the same at how bad it is. Biden is done.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, I watched it. I was in Miami. I was at a Judicial Watch meeting that I was invited to. Carol Williams and I went, and they had a debate watch party with Biden bingo
Oh yeah, I
and
saw the
ice
Biden
cream
bingo.
and popcorn and that. So I listened to the whole thing. I didn't necessarily see it all because I was looking at my bingo card. I didn't win, but I will tell you, Carol Williams won bingo,
Oh yeah.
and so there was a couple of great zingers that Trump did. You wondered how juiced up Biden was going to be, and to
They
me,
probably had to give him about 18 B12 shots after he got out of the debate to go and give that speech.
oh, absolutely, they like overdid it. He got the angry Biden back at that
Yeah,
speech.
the old yeller Biden showed up an hour later.
Yeah,
And then what I just heard this, but there was one report that said this weekend on Sunday, the family was going to go have a family meeting about their political future. Guess what? They didn't. First of all, Jill Biden came out and she gave a speech someplace where she was screaming about Trump lying and that Joe answered every question. I mean, they're
yeah.
living in a complete fantasy world that even the Democrat Party isn't in anymore. But then on Sunday, you know what they did? They went ahead with their plans to hold a family photo, uh, like you go get portraits of made of your family.
Mhm.
Um, and that might be needed for Joe's presidential museum, which will have bars on it that are going to have all the pictures of the family. Where Hunter is going to be behind one, like there'll be bars on the portrait because that's the only portrait they're going to get of Hunter at some point. And I guess the rumor is Hunter. They weren't having a heart-to-heart discussion about whether Joe should stay in the race or not because he's already declared he's not getting out.
Right.
But Hunter was vociferously trying to persuade his dad to stay in. Apparently, that was some rumor, and who knows if this stuff's true. But the fact is, just about everybody is circling the wagons on the Democrat side. The New York Times wrote an editorial saying, "Step aside."
Yeah, and a lot of the donors are saying step aside. And so it's
Yep.
very interesting from Friday to or Thursday night to today because the whole narrative they're trying to spin it around. No, Joe's really okay. Are you kidding me? But, the zinger of Biden is speaking and Trump says, I don't think he knows what he said at the end of that sentence, and I don't know what he said at the end of that sentence, and I don't think he does either. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, did he like slap him that one? And it was absolute gibberish. There was
Yeah.
no making sense of any of that.
And Trump, that was the most quotable line from the debate. Some people tried to talk about golf and all that kind of stuff, and I know that kind of seems silly, but that was more or less driven by a question that CNN asked. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, tried to follow what Biden was saying,
Yeah.
because I will listen and certainly give, score in his column, in Biden's column, if he said something of substance and
Right.
conveyed it, even if it was short and I don't agree with it and I think he's still an idiot. But I honestly couldn't understand what he was saying. I was like, this feels like we need some subtitles, because he was mumbling. It was
Yeah.
discernible what he was saying. And I ended up listening to it on the radio at one point in a replay that evening,
Hmm.
Sirius XM radio. And I actually got more out of what he said, but it was still mumbling. It's just that his presentation style distracted so much from anything he was saying that even with people who agreed with him, just couldn't get anything from it. And then he kept making gaffes that he had to correct, like a 1,000 trillionaires.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
You know, and
and
if you look at Twitter, Elon Musk did the fact checking of the lies that Biden did. And it's a long list of the fact checking. It goes, oh no, and it was actually, the Democrats always project.
yeah.
And it was Biden who was doing the name calling. It was Biden who was lying. Trump did not. I felt he refrained himself very good.
Yeah.
But another big teller, and it was someone here mentioned it already. At the very end, Trump walked off stage right, and Jill
Yeah.
came up and got Biden. And why he didn't go back and go stage left, I don't know. But coming down the stairs, you see how frail he is.
Oh,
And
he was going to trip and fall if she didn't
yes,
come and get him.
yes,
And I think the number one comment that I saw social media and from just any random person is it felt like elder abuse,
yeah,
because you could see that she's propping him up. She
yeah.
really wants this whole thing. And I was listening to um, Fox News here on the Sirius XM satellite as I was driving up from Eugene here this afternoon, and one of the things they said was Jill is just loves the trappings of being the first lady, sort of this temporary royalty. And
Who
she,
wouldn't?
she once commented recently about how it felt like the entire world was holding its breath out of respect for you when the Secret Service makes all the vehicles stop on the roads, the cross streets that they would travel a presidential
Yeah,
motorcade
yeah.
down. And I'm just like, and of course they've been raking in millions off of
Yeah.
the grifting,
The Biden crime family.
yeah, just sort of selling this influence and this name.
Mm-hmm.
And and then now I actually think it's, by the way, almost impossible for them to withhold the audio recording of the special prosecutor and the Biden secret documents case,
Yeah.
because the special prosecutor said he shouldn't be prosecuted, he shouldn't be charged, because you couldn't get a conviction because no jury would convict him, because you actually have to establish that there was intent to hold these documents, that it wasn't some accidental thing. And he's an elderly man with a poor memory, who during his interview couldn't remember what year his son died, which he talks about all the time.
Yes.
And he forgot facts about his own life in talking to the special prosecutor. They sanitized it by sticking it into a transcript, took out the ums and the ahs, and I think now they're going to have to turn that over. And they are, by the way, getting very serious. So this debate probably has given impetus to this. A Republican on the powerful House committee that is overseeing the contempt charge against Garland says they believe they will have the votes for what's called inherent contempt, which means that the sergeant of arms, I believe, for the House can go and arrest Garland
As
and put him in a prison cell
Yep.
in the Capitol building for being found in contempt of Congress.
Yeah.
And he's being held in contempt, although there's like so many reasons. He's being held in contempt because Garland is refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena to hand over the audio recordings of Joe Biden's interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur. I think it's going to be almost impossible for Garland to continue resisting this. And the fact is, Garland has prosecuted people for contempt of Congress.
Yes.
It's only been the people that he and Joe Biden would disagree with politically, and not the people that they actually want to protect or shield.
You know,
So,
these agencies don't believe that they have that our legislators have oversight, and they do. And the Supreme Court has, with the decisions most recently, the Chevron decision, you know, is putting that back. You know, yeah, Bannon went to jail today, you know, for contempt of Congress for not going and speaking onto the disingenuous, the fake J6 committee,
yeah,
the uncommittee, because that wasn't even legitimate.
it wasn't legitimately constituted.
No.
And also, as we know, they weren't interested in getting to the truth. They were interested in generating propaganda, because
Yes.
they actually covered up and destroyed records of
Yes.
testimony that was given to them. And they also had a Hollywood producer help produce their final presentation, which omitted parts of their own evidence in order to get people to believe a certain story about what happened on January 6th. That was their objective. And shame on them. Those people are going to be, they're going to go down in history as some of the biggest liars of all time.
Fraudsters.
The other thing that happened relating to January 6th was the Supreme Court decision that also might affect the Trump case about January 6th, the charges against him, that hundreds of people that have been charged for, I believe it is attempt to disrupt an official proceeding. And also, what was it? Something having to do with interference or destruction of documents or something like that. And they said, well, they said you basically have to prove that people actually did destroy documents. You can't just, because it was based on the Enron case and some rules, some laws that were passed to address financial crimes a couple decades ago, and they twisted it into something that was used to go after people on January 6th, and the Supreme Court ruled, and not on a what you might call a party line basis. There was one Republican appointed Supreme Court justice who voted against the ruling, and one Democrat appointed who voted for it, but it was 6-3, so pretty solid ruling. And so there might be many people whose charges are going to be, if they're still facing court time dismissed, others, those charges might actually have to be revoked, and people's records expunged, because they were playing fast and loose with the law in order to execute an political operation. And
absolutely. You know,
so you mentioned the Chevron decision. We should talk about that one briefly in a minute.
Sure.
Well, okay. So the Chevron decision, you were just saying return power to Congress. I liked what one of the headlines said. It was it was a kill shot to big government, and it's because big government, the way it worked is, if you didn't like a decision made by a bureaucrat who made a rule that they applied to you and then maybe fined you because of it, you were only allowed to appeal that decision to the same body that inflicted the fine on you and enforced the rule in the bureaucracy. And what this did is it took that power away from these government agencies and said, actually, the decision on whether something was not excessive, was just, was that followed the law, won't be decided by somebody conflicted by that in the executive branch, but by a
Mhm.
court, an Article 3 court in
Yes.
the judicial branch. And therefore,
And not an agency that's going to bring all these experts in. Well, our experts know better.
we have a set of experts on the law called judges in
Yes.
courts whose job it is to determine whether the law has been applied correctly or not and whether people's rights have been violated in the process. And so that Chevron decision, it has the Democrats scurrying because they're freaking out. They
Yeah.
think that they have some right to do this stuff. And they have been repelled by a profound Supreme Court ruling that I think has essentially removed power from big government and the executive branch, and that was one. And that was one. Another
That
one
upsets
is
about 50 years. About 50 years.
I
It was in
know.
the 80s, the Chevron
Yep.
decision, and so this is why we've had liberal courts for so long that they have been not following the Constitution and kind of dismantling the Constitution, if you will, and putting agencies over the rule of law. And this decision is now putting the rule of law back over the agencies. And I'll tell you, it's one of the best decisions I think that is going to help the United States is this Chevron and all of these, the EPA, the strict um, agency guidelines that they're putting on us, and yet there's no law. They're trying to make law. These agencies are making rules and calling them
And
law.
being the judge and jury too.
Yes, that too. That too.
Well, and
Yes.
I think that what it's going to do is it's going to be um, the kind of decision that will take a while before people realize how much it's going to affect and how much it's going to change, because companies could be extorted into complying with the wishes, maybe often politically motivated wishes of the government,
Yeah.
even when it was unlawful, unconstitutional, and cruel and unusual what they were doing to those companies, but they could get away with it
Mhm.
because of what the Chevron decision originally had, and now it's been overturned. So now we can have freedom and justice again. And there's the there was another decision that's going to be consequential about cities grants pass, the grants
Oh,
pass
yes.
decision, whether grants pass if the city finding public camping, having public camping laws that restrict public camping, homelessness as it's
Mhm.
become to be referred, is cruel and unusual. And the court ruled again 6-3 that in fact it was not presumed to be cruel and unusual, and that you could say time, place, and manner restrictions on where people could go camp, especially on public property, was lawful. And there's a lawyer here in Oregon by the name of Beth Jones who was leading that case. And it's congratulations, Beth. This is a huge, because
Yes.
now this is also where cities and locales could seize back control of the ability to control what happens to their citizens in their
Mhm.
jurisdictions, rather than be beholden to either a court decision at a higher level that just rules out any ability for local governance to take place. And
Mhm.
that's why
Mhm.
Stand for Freedom was about trying to assert local government governance back. So this is a big decision because we know that that's been homelessness, addiction, fentanyl, crime. All these things have just been engulfed our state. And this city in Southern Oregon was trying to do something about it. Now, cities that say, well, we really can't do anything about it, that excuse is gone.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You don't have to provide a place for the homeless to go in order to stop them. This nullifies the bill that the Oregon legislature passed.
Yeah.
That, and but I was reading an article that Portland passed a different bill, and they're saying this Supreme Court decision may not affect Portland. Don't you know?
Yeah, I know.
And but in I understand in talking to somebody, a friend of mine, that this was Beth Jones' first case to the U.S. Supreme Court,
Yep.
and she won. And so kudos to her and the
Yep.
team that put this together. This is a huge win for America. It truly, truly is. I posted a link there to the story from Oregon Catalyst on this, and this is like a boon.
Yeah,
It really is for all of America.
For all the other news happening at the same time, the Supreme Court decisions, the debate, all this stuff, this probably would have been like Beth would have been all over the news doing interviews, because it would have been the top news item because of how many places, especially in the left coast, are affected by this, and how many cities run by conservatives are being told they can't do anything about homelessness that's wrecking their cities. And so nevertheless, it goes down in history as a great accomplishment, and congratulations to Beth. It just proves that you actually can fight back. It takes time, it takes ingenuity, it takes persistence, and it takes just being right, and then knowing, having faith that the Lord's going to actually put the wind in your sails so you can make it happen. There are so many other stories that we can't possibly cover tonight, because it's been an unbelievable volume of news in just a handful of days. I don't know if you know this, but U.S. forces throughout Europe are on high alert, because there's credible intelligence saying that they expect within the next week an attack to be launched by terrorists in Europe against a U.S. base or facility. And it's actually, this is sort of crossing paths with the issue about Joe Biden being president, because I think more damage was done than just Joe Biden's chances of winning the general election as a result of that debate. Here's a couple of things that happened. First of all, some of the people are starting to say that he was set up by his aides.
Yes.
And I actually said that before this happened, that I thought, this sounds like something somebody wanted and told Joe was a good idea.
A soft coup.
A soft coup, exactly. And there are certainly opportunists in the Democrat Party: Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Hillary Clinton. Yeah, they're just going to come out of the woodwork, who are waiting for this, and they are like the cockroaches that scurry around and emerge as soon as the nuclear bomb goes off, right?
Yeah.
And but what was fascinating is I read an account from the Democrats actually had a debate watch party in Los Angeles. It had Gretchen Whitmer. It had Governor Pritzker from Illinois, the supergiant guy, and a bunch of Hollywood actors there. And apparently Jane Fonda was in tears. That's what was reported. And yeah, I know. Too bad. About time. Just desserts for her. And Rob Reiner, the meathead from All in the Family, I guess, was just screaming like, "We're gonna lose!" Bunch of expletives. "We're gonna lose!" And the second husband, Kamala Harris's husband, was there at the thing, just witnessing all this.
Oh,
yeah. Can you believe that?
Would be a fly on the wall in there. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if I was a Democrat, seeing that, I'd be going, "Oh no, oh, we are going to lose." And as I was talking with somebody today, if they replace Biden at the convention and have an unbrokered convention, there's so many talking heads right now about having an unbrokered convention.
Brokered convention, or
yeah, a brokered convention, I guess. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that would destroy the Democrat Party, because they all voted for him for the primary, but that was before this debate.
Oh,
You
they've
know?
disenfranchised millions of Democrats who were left with no choice but Joe Biden on the ballot in state after
Yeah,
state after
yeah,
state after state, and there is nobody in second place who could attain the delegates. There's nobody even going to campaign for the job, so it would be a one of these dirty deals in the back rooms, which everything's been run by people in back rooms with dirty deals all along. Obama's been doing this. It's been
yes.
happening already. And Joe Biden's like just the marionette puppet, you know. But uh, but I think the biggest problem they face is they put themselves in a terrible situation. First of all, people knew it was this bad. The people who helped Joe Biden with his debate prep knew he was going to be
Yes.
this terrible. They had to have known.
Yes.
Unless they were doing copious amounts of fentanyl through the entire debate prep, they know that he was going to completely screw this up. And which lends itself to the idea that maybe somebody thought this is a nice way to set him up so they can get him out. But they waited pretty late because Joe Biden, these delegates, by party rule and law in many states, as we know with Oregon, right,
Mm-hmm.
are bound during the first two ballots to him. And if he gets enough votes in the first ballot, he's in. So unless he voluntarily unbinds these delegates and decides that he's not going to be the nominee and releases them, they can't do anything about it, except they could play hardball with him. And the scenario that I heard today, I thought of this actually last week, and then I heard the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, actually make reference to it. And it was this high alert in Europe stuff that made me think of it as well. Is Joe Biden doesn't look like he can do the job now. He doesn't
No.
look like he can handle being president now. And there are, you know, if you're going to come under attack from or find wars breaking out because of this appearance of weakness and the inability to function as president, much less serve 4 more years and win in November, then the 25th Amendment, Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, offers an option for either a combination of the vice president and half of the cabinet, of the cabinet officers, to vote and state that Joe Biden is incapable of carrying out his duties. Then he is temporarily, his powers are removed and given to the vice president. And then the president has 4 days to make the case to essentially state that he believes they're wrong and that he has the ability to do this job. And then, if the people, if he does say this, which Joe Biden probably would, then the vice president and the cabinet officers that were in the majority in that vote are can respond, and if they affirm that they still agree with their original decision, then it goes to Congress, and Congress, I believe by a majority vote, can actually remove the president, and then those powers revert to the vice president immediately. The vice president becomes the president. President Kamala Harris, which has been the best insurance policy Joe Biden could have had up until this point. But now
Right.
the jig is up, because
The
if
jig
they
is
feel like
up.
if he's going to lose, and
Yeah.
by the way, he's not just going to lose, he's going to take down a whole bunch of Democrats and a whole bunch of people angry the Democrat Party served up this giant loser to them and left them with no options. So the talk is that they might use the 25th Amendment to threaten him. So you can be president for 7 more months, but you gotta resign, the step down and release your delegates at the convention so we can get somebody else in there. And if you don't, we're going to basically completely screw you over and make it impossible for you to not only win, but probably remove you from office.
Yeah.
That is what the talk is. And the Speaker of the House wasn't saying that he was planning this. He's just saying it's time to think about the 25th Amendment. By the way, Congress actually has the same power under the 25th Amendment. It's either the vice president and majority of the cabinet, or majority of Congress can do the same thing. And if a majority of Congress agrees with this, and if Democrats and Republicans, kind of agree that he's toast, then he's toast.
And he has, I would say, do whatever you have to do to ensure that we don't get into World War III, because we're so close, right?
Yeah.
And not the Democrats don't even want Harris as president.
That's
But
the
then
problem.
again,
This gives them Harris as president potentially.
Yeah. And but what I'm also hearing and reading about is how much they're saying, wait a minute, because after that debate going, well, who's in charge here? Because clearly he's not. And when you're hearing the left say that, the right's been saying that for a long time, that we have a slow government. We know it. But now you're hearing that from the left. That is that's saying something. And frankly, I don't want Harris to be our first woman president by any means, but I'll tell you, I fear more about going into war.
And I just don't know.
I don't know that she would keep us out.
Either. I think whenever they sent Kamala Harris someplace, bad things happened afterwards.
Yes.
And she is complete nincompoop. And actually, the Democrats know this, and the polls show it, because as much as Joe Biden is struggling, he's still looking down in the polls at Kamala Harris below him. And this is hard to believe that we're at this stage, but this is where we're at. And by the way, there was one other very consequential Supreme Court ruling I want to mention. The Supreme Court ruled that President Trump, or any president for that matter, has absolute immunity for some official acts, but not unofficial ones. And that they've kicked this decision back down to the lower court to define to actually adjudicate what is an official act versus not an official act. And then this would then be applied to the charges that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, who, by the way, I think is completely unconstitutionally appointed, has charged Trump with regarding January 6th. And so there's going to be a decision about what was and what was not an official act. And then that may well involve immunity for the president acting in office.
I think that case is dead. I do. I think that case
is not going to happen before the election. That's the number one thing. That's all the Democrats have really cared about.
Yes, exactly. They wanted that operative. They got him convicted as a felon. And I don't know, have you seen the shirt that has a little bubble, like a voting bubble that you fill in, and it has a bubble and it says Joe Biden, and it has another bubble and it's all filled, that bubble's filled in, and it says convicted felon? I love that shirt.
Yeah.
Voting for the convicted felon.
I'm voting for the felon instead of the melon,
Yes.
Yeah. I think Joe Biden has defined the low point for almost any president right now in terms of belief that he can do the job he's doing. I do think there's real consequences for that. Some people said they felt sad for Joe Biden in the debate, but he volunteered for this, and he's letting his wife do what she's doing. And she's awful.
His wife is doing elder abuse. I've said it ever since. I said it when they were campaigning before he was elected. This is absolutely elder abuse. And now there's more people in the media saying that.
But I felt at the end of the debate, as it was winding, I felt sad for our country that we're in this state and that we're led by this person, because, it can really get dangerous and ugly. There could be a massive natural disaster.
Yeah.
The Chinese could decide this is the moment to go into Taiwan. And we got this guy who can't even form sentences and can't stay awake for more than 4 hours a day without starting to kind of sound like he's coming apart. I mean, this is what, if you're a hostile country and you look and say, when's our moment? When can we pull this off? If we wait 5 years, they might figure it out. If we wait 8 months, we might have a new president who will not let us do this.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Maybe we do it as soon as we think we can pull it off. Maybe not before the election, though, but right afterwards. And this is just advertised on the world stage. So
It is.
even if voters aren't paying attention to all this stuff, still, and they had no idea Joe Biden was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
The Chinese can watch debates. The Iranians can watch debates and say, this might be the best time to finally set off that nuclear weapon and let everybody know we're nuclear power. What's Joe Biden going to do then? That war, none of those wars have to happen if you have a strong president that's on top of this and is feared to the point of respect by other countries. But weakness is what produces wars. No one's ever been attacked because they were too strong.
Right. Right. And I'll tell you, that's where, and then, not to mention what could happen just within our own nation because of our open border status. And we could go on and on, Kevin, for a whole nother hour. I know we could.
400. They've admitted that they let 400 ISIS connected people into the country, terrorist connected people. Mm-hmm. They have only admitted that they can't find 50 of them right now. And 19 people pulled off 9/11. Yes. And these are the people that came into the country and were identified when they came in. Either they were captured or they just actually a bunch of them, including some of the ones that were arrested, the 8 that were arrested from Tajikistan, used the CBP app, the Customs and Border Patrol app, to make an asylum appointment so they could get in. And then these morons said they did a background check on somebody from Tajikistan and didn't find anything and let them in. So, but that's the 400 that they admit. They are withholding information from Congress right now about the nature of their background check stuff. And we know that there's 1.7 million gotaways that have gotten into the country. So 400 is probably just the tip of the iceberg of the people who are floating around in this country ready to kill someone.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. This is a dangerous moment. We need a real president. We don't have it.
We do. And this is why we have to all vote. We have to encourage everybody we know to vote. We need to get those Republicans off their butts that are not voting. And because we have a nation to save and a nation to turn around. And it's a perilous time. It truly is. And so what that debate did was woke up more people to that reality.
Yeah.
That's, it truly did. Well, Kevin, thank you for letting me come on tonight, and everybody. We miss David. We miss David immensely. But you know what? His memory lives on. His memory and his legacy lives on, and we'll try to keep doing him some justice.
We'll keep doing the wrong speak. We'll keep issuing the false opinion. We will keep pointing out that Marxists are laying eggs in Eugene. We will do all of that stuff. And you know what? I actually think that we just went through some news, however harrowing it is. A lot of it's pretty positive about the future and how this country can turn around. What could be a better tribute to David than to have all this news land in just a handful of days right after he passed away? You got to feel like maybe that optimistic vision that David said, choose hope. I have every reason to believe that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So.
Yes, I do.
Well, we love all of you, and we thank you for watching us here. Thank you. You guys say hello, family. Yeah, this is a family. That is for sure. And please do share this with everyone you can. Please post it on Facebook and tell people so they can watch this and hear what we shared and share their memories and their experience with David and with many other people who might not have known David and don't even know us, but need to hear this, because there is hope. And there's a lot of positive things that happen. and we are very fortunate to have been blessed by knowing and experiencing David in our lives. So I'm going to be back tomorrow night with another episode of The Captive Audience. We have Dave Huguenot on, who is consultant, used to work for the Trump campaign in 2020, talks to us about the presidential race. We're going to go talk about all this news, and we're going to hear what he thinks about it. And he and I have had this debate going on for months. Will they replace Biden? I am really interested to hear what he has to say about it now.
All right. That'll be great. Thank you so much, Kevin. And I'll be looking forward to your program tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night.